The craft coin envelope lay beside a pawn release sheet on the intake counter. Suspected impersonation property had been stamped across the envelope. The box for a police case number on the pawn sheet was still empty. Behind the glass door to the interview corridor, Raymond Talley stood with his wrists cuffed behind him. The envelope had been printed first. The theft intake had not been opened. 23 minutes earlier, Raymond had entered Westbridge precinct carrying a brown document sleeve. A small silver pin rested inside the breast pocket. He had come for one report number. The woman ahead of him placed a hardware store receipt on the counter and said a power saw had disappeared from her garage. Officer Brett Colson asked for her address, typed for less than a minute, and slid an incident card beneath the glass. Raymond stepped forward. He placed the pawn release sheet, a photograph of a wedding ring, and an insurance serial number on the counter. Curtis Lang at the pawn shop had recovered the ring from a mixed property lot. Release required a police case number. When Raymond opened his coat for his license, the silver pin touched the zipper and dropped onto the counter. 4 small stars faced upward. Colson picked it up before Raymond could move it. "Where did you get this?" "My wife gave it to me." Colson turned the pin over. A repaired seam crossed one corner of the clasp. He glanced at Raymond's coat, then through the lobby window at the old green pickup near the curb. Sergeant Carla Wynn came from the records door. Colson held the pin toward her instead of returning Raymond's license. Raymond kept one palm on the document sleeve. "I need the case number for the ring." Wynn asked whether he had served. Raymond said he had retired from the Army. Colson asked the rank. Raymond looked at the pawn release sheet. "General." The word did not change his posture. It changed Colson's hands. He moved the pin away from Raymond and set it beside the keyboard. The woman with the power saw report remained near the exit. Nobody had asked her to prove she owned a saw. Wynn asked Raymond for a retirement card. He had not brought one. He had brought the documents needed for the stolen ring. Colson opened a property classification screen. He did not open the theft intake page. Wynn placed a craft envelope beneath the printer slot. Colson entered 3 lines. 4-star military insignia. Owner unable to provide rank documentation. Possible impersonation article. No line described money requested, restricted access attempted, an order issued, or a person harmed. The printer fed out a narrow card. Mara Whitcomb sat at the civilian intake station 2 counters away. She saw the timestamp at the bottom. She also saw the pawn release sheet remain outside any file. Colson slid the pin into the envelope. The flap scraped across the clasp. Raymond pointed once toward the sheet. "I came in as the person reporting a theft." Wynn told him to place his hands behind his back while they confirmed the property claim. Raymond removed his palm from the sleeve. He turned without raising his voice. The cuffs closed. The woman by the exit lowered her eyes. As Colson led Raymond toward the corridor, Raymond asked that the original reason for his visit be entered first. Colson returned to the terminal. Subject invoked military rank during police contact. Mara read the sentence from her screen. The system asked for a civilian intake signature confirming the origin of the contact. Her hand rested above the signature pad. One document had already been printed before the department recorded the stolen ring. "Did you notice which one? We'll need someone from military personnel to call us back." Sergeant Carla Wynn pressed the speaker button on the interview room telephone. A recorded menu offered public affairs, recruiting, casualty assistance, and installation information. None handled retirement verification. Wynn selected public affairs. The line rang 6 times before a voicemail greeting began. She left Raymond Talley's name, the precinct number, and a request for an urgent callback. Then she placed the receiver down. A red recording light remained on above the door. Raymond sat in a molded plastic chair with his cuffed hands resting against the metal edge of the table. A wall clock showed 12 minutes past 3. "What act are you investigating?" he asked. Wynn stood beside a telephone extension list taped near the light switch. "We are confirming the information you provided." "What act made confirmation custodial?" Wynn removed a pen from her shirt pocket but did not answer. She said the appropriate employee might have left for the day. If no one returned the message, the morning shift could continue. Raymond looked at the wall clock. "Please read the time into the camera." Wynn glanced toward the red light. She read it. Raymond did not repeat his service history. He did not explain deployments, commands, or retirement dates. He asked once whether the theft complaint had been accepted. Wynn said the property matter would be addressed after identity verification. At the civilian station, Mara Whitcomb watched the voicemail indicator blink on Wynn's extension. The call had not reached a verifier. It had reached an unattended mailbox. A second line rang. Curtis Lang from Harrow Street Exchange asked whether Westbridge had issued the report number. His shop closed at 5. Without a number, the recovered wedding ring would remain in secured inventory overnight and move into the next release cycle. Mara told him no theft file was visible. Curtis sent an email while she remained on the line. The attachment contained an old ceremony program, a jeweler's repair ticket, and an insurance appraisal page. The program showed Lillian Talley fastening 4 silver stars to Raymond's Army uniform. The repair ticket described a bent clasp and a narrow solder line along the lower corner. Mara opened the property log thumbnail created after the item had been seized. The same solder line appeared beneath the clasp. The image did not prove what legal authority Raymond had possessed. It proved where the item had come from and why he had carried it. Mara printed the email header. Curtis's message had arrived before Wynn's voicemail request had been returned. Wynn came out of the corridor and saw the pages. Send those to Records. Captain Hendricks is still here. Records handles military verification. Mara looked at the telephone extension list. Records did not verify military rank. The unit stored local reports. Wynn tapped the ceremony program with one finger. Put it in the morning queue. We do not need 3 departments working the same question. The ordinary wording made the delay sound organized. Mara opened the quick reference drawer beneath her desk. A laminated impersonation card listed the elements required before custodial action. Attempted benefit, restricted access, official command, identified victim, or documented harm. None appeared beside Raymond's name. She could send the pages into a queue that would not move until morning. Wynn controlled her schedule, leave requests, and annual evaluation. Mara lifted the call routing sheet instead. She carried the email header, the ceremony program, the repair ticket, and the reference card past the records door to Captain Joel Hendricks's office. Hendricks read the card first. Then he listened to the lobby recording. Coulson's voice asked the rank. Raymond answered. No request for privilege followed. No order. No threat. No attempt to enter a secured area. Hendricks opened the interview room feed. Raymond remained in the plastic chair. The wall clock had moved beyond 3:30. Why is he still restrained? Wynn said military verification remained pending. Hendricks placed the reference card on his desk. That answers who he may be. It does not create an act. He ordered the interview room door opened. The secure city inbox sounded once before Wynn reached the corridor. A written personnel response had arrived through the legal liaison channel. The first line identified Raymond Talley as a retired 4-star Army general. Hendricks did not withdraw the release order. Mara still had one decision attached to her name. Send the packet into a queue that would not move until morning, or carry it past the supervisor who controlled her job. Which choice would you make? Captain Joel Hendricks pressed the release lever on Raymond Talley's restraints. The metal opened. Sergeant Carla Wynn entered before Raymond had stood. She carried a thick policy binder with a yellow tab fixed near the middle. Officer safety verification permits temporary separation, she said. Hendricks opened the marked page. Wynn had placed the tab beside that sentence. The next paragraph required observed conduct showing a safety risk, attempted access to a protected area, or refusal to leave after a lawful direction. The lobby threat checklist contained no marked box. Raymond had walked into the precinct voluntarily. He had placed no hand on an officer. He had approached no secured door. He had issued no command. He had asked for one public service available at the front counter. Hendricks unfolded the portion of the page Wynn had bent behind the tab. The rest of the policy became visible. The written personnel response arrived after the release order. It identified Raymond Talley as a retired 4-star Army general. Hendricks attached the response to the review file. He did not use it to justify Raymond's release. The precinct had held a theft complainant without an independent criminal act. Raymond's former rank changed neither the sequence nor the absence beneath it. Raymond signed a recusal statement on a plain clipboard. He would not recommend discipline. He would not approve compensation. He requested that the original detention entry remain preserved beneath any correction. A property release voucher returned the silver insignia to him. Raymond examined the repaired clasp once. He placed the pin inside his coat. He left through the same public entrance he had used that afternoon. Miriam Baird from the Civilian Oversight Office began the review the following week. She placed the restraint authorization slip beside the lobby threat checklist. Wynn's approval appeared on the first document. The second showed no threat, access attempt, command, victim, or harm. The counter recording established that Officer Brett Coulson had asked Raymond's former rank. Raymond had answered. Coulson then described that answer as an effort to influence police service. The recording also captured the woman ahead of Raymond receiving a theft number after presenting an ordinary store receipt. No one asked her to prove that she worked with tools. No one opened a secondary classification screen. Her report took less than 2 minutes. Raymond's request had never reached the theft screen before Coulson treated the pin as suspect property. The policy binder permitted temporary separation during an active safety concern. It did not permit custody while an officer searched for a concern that had not yet occurred. Coulson's civil service order sustained biased policing, unsupported custodial conversion, improper seizure of voluntarily presented property, and inaccurate incident documentation. Westbridge ended his employment after the hearing. His separation notice did not describe the case as confusion over military identification. It stated that he had converted a walk-in theft complainant into a criminal suspect without an independent prohibited act. His authority to handle public complaints ended when the finding became final. His state employment record marked him ineligible for any future law enforcement position involving front desk intake, detention approval, evidence classification, or direct public contact. He could not take the same judgment to another precinct and place a different badge above it. Wynne received a separate finding. She had not made Colson's first remark. She had taken his assumption, placed procedure around it, and approved restraint. She had later marked one sentence in the policy binder while folding the limiting paragraph behind the tab. Wynne lost her sergeant rank. Her supervisory certification was withdrawn. She served an unpaid suspension and was removed permanently from every roster involving detention review, staff evaluation, complaint closure, and public intake supervision. Her personnel order carried a sustained finding for selective policy use and attempted concealment of the true contact sequence. She could not supervise sworn officers again. Mara Whitcomb testified about the first minutes at the counter. She admitted that she had remained silent when Colson lifted the insignia and drew other officers toward the desk. Her statement also showed what happened later. She had refused to route the case into a queue that would hide the delay. She had carried the source documents past the supervisor, who controlled her schedule. Mara received no ceremonial award. The city changed her authority instead. Civilian intake specialists could now attach a routing objection directly to the duty counsel queue. A sworn supervisor could answer the objection. The supervisor could not delete it, delay its timestamp, or return it to the employee without review. Raymond's correction certificate identified him as a walk-in theft complainant. It stated that no criminal impersonation basis had been established. It stated that the restraint lacked documented safety conduct. It stated that answering an officer's question about prior rank did not constitute an attempt to exercise military authority. The unsupported entry could not enter a firearm review, background inquiry, licensing decision, or future police risk assessment. An independent examiner approved compensation for the detention, delayed property recovery, and documented legal expenses. Raymond did not choose the examiner or sign the payment authorization. Curtis Lang released Lillian's wedding band through the ordinary pickup window. Raymond presented the new theft number and signed the property receipt. Curtis placed the ring inside a small paper box. There was no press camera beside the counter. The oversight office then reviewed the walk-in contacts Colson had converted during the previous 18 months, and every conversion Wynne had approved during the same period. The review was narrow. It did not assume every decision had been wrong. It asked whether each file contained an independent prohibited act before the complainant became a suspect. 4 files did not. One involved a delivery driver who had reported damage to his van and was later labeled uncooperative after questioning why officers wanted to search the cargo area. Another involved a woman who had brought a found wallet to the precinct and was detained because the amount of cash inside did not match an officer's expectation. The unsupported classifications were removed. Each person received a written correction and an individual claims review. Westbridge then adopted the walk-in complainant conversion standard. A complainant could not be converted into a suspect because of clothing, insignia, an unverified title, or property that appeared inconsistent with an officer's assumptions. Any conversion required a separate observable act, duty counsel approval, and an unchangeable time entry. An officer who asked about rank, occupation, ownership, or status could not use the answer alone as evidence that the person had volunteered a false claim. Voluntarily presented property could not be classified as criminal evidence until the officer identified the suspected offense and recorded the act connecting the property to it. The intake number had to remain visible through every later classification. Several months later, Raymond stood beside a youth football field with a whistle and a practice roster. A boy moved to the wrong side of the formation. Raymond walked him back 2 steps. He pointed to a chalk mark near the line of scrimmage, waited until the boy set both shoes, and returned to the sideline. The wedding band rested at home in Lillian's wooden jewelry box. The 4-star pin remained inside Raymond's coat. The whistle sounded. 12 helmets turned. Nothing visible on Raymond had to prove that he deserved to be heard. This story is fictional.